My sister humiliated me for years for going to community college, but when I became a successful writer, she came back begging. She invented a fake business with my name, scammed investors, and blamed me for the fraud. I'm 24 years old. I work as a freelance writer, and honestly, I need to get this off my chest because what happened with my sister basically destroyed any hope I had of having a normal relationship with my family. The thing is that Charlotte and I used to be super close. I mean, we were those sisters that people would see and say, "Oh, how nice. They get along so well," and all that stuff. She's 2 years older than me, and when we were kids, she was my favorite person in the world, you know? We did everything together. We had our inside jokes. We covered for each other when we got in trouble, the whole classic sister dynamic. But everything started to change when she went to college. She got into one of those prestigious universities. You know, the kind where people basically orgasm when they hear the name, and it was like she suddenly became a different person. At first, I thought it was just normal. Like, she's meeting new people, she's busy with her classes and her social life. It's understandable that we wouldn't have as much contact as before. But when it was my turn to go to college, things got really weird. I decided to go to community college, and not because I was dumb or anything like that, but because it made sense for me. It was cheaper. I could work part-time while studying, and honestly, I didn't see the point of going into debt for the next 20 years just to have a fancy name on a diploma. Charlotte didn't see it that way. Not at all. I remember perfectly the first time I mentioned it at a family dinner. She was like 20 years old at the time, and I was 18, and when I said I had enrolled in the local community college, the face she made was like I had told her I was going to join a circus or something. She said, like, "Really, Olivia? Community college?" And I tried to explain my reasons, but she just made that hand gesture, like dismissing everything I was saying, and changed the subject. I should have seen it coming, honestly, because from there, everything went downhill. What happened next was that little by little, Charlotte started to kind of distance herself from me, but in a super obvious and hurtful way. When she came home on breaks or whatever, she didn't spend time with me like before anymore. And when her friends from college came over, or when she talked about her life there, she basically acted like I didn't exist, or worse, like I was an embarrassment. One day, I overheard without meaning to. Well, not so much without meaning to. I was on the other side of her bedroom door. How she told one of her friends on the phone that her younger sister was wasting her life at community college and that it was super embarrassing having to explain to people that I hadn't gone to a real university. When I say I froze, I mean I literally couldn't move my feet from the shock. I tried to talk to her about it, you know? Like, I thought that maybe if I explained how I felt, she would understand that she was hurting me. But when I confronted her, she basically told me I was being too sensitive, and that if it bothered me so much what people thought, maybe I should have made better decisions about my education. I mean, can you believe it? She blamed me for feeling bad about her horrible behavior. And the worst part is that our parents, well, especially Mom, who now goes by Linda in this story because I guess it sounds more neutral or whatever, basically sided with Charlotte, or at least never really confronted her about how she treated me. It went on like that for about 2 years, with Charlotte basically treating me like I was inferior, and me swallowing my pride and trying to maintain some kind of relationship with her because, I don't know, I guess I thought she was my sister and that had to mean something. But then what I call the party incident happened, which was 3 years ago and was basically the moment when everything completely exploded. Charlotte was throwing one of her fancy parties. She had invited a bunch of her friends from college and some colleagues from her new job. She had gotten a position at, I don't know what important firm after graduating, and for some reason, she decided to invite me. Now that I think about it, she probably only did it because Mom pressured her, or because she needed help preparing things. Who knows? Anyway, I went to the party, and from the moment I arrived, I felt super uncomfortable. Everyone there was talking about their jobs at important companies, their graduate degrees, their trips to Europe, and I was there like trying to make conversation and basically feeling like I didn't fit in at all. Charlotte didn't even introduce me to people properly. She just said, "Oh, she's my sister, and that's it," and then walked away. At one point in the evening, I was trying to reach for a drink from the table and accidentally spilled some on the dress of one of Charlotte's friends. It was a total accident. I mean, it was literally like 2 drops. Nothing dramatic. But Charlotte turned livid. She grabbed my arm, pulled me aside, and started yelling at me in a low voice, but with so much anger that I could feel her hot breath on my face. She told me I was pathetic, that she couldn't take me anywhere without me ruining everything, that I should have stayed home. And then, and this is what still hurts when I think about it, she said loud enough for several people to hear, "You know what? I don't want you here anymore. Leave. And don't talk to me again." Just like that, she kicked me out of her party, out of her house, out of her life. I was so in shock that I couldn't even respond. I just grabbed my things and left with tears falling down my face as I walked to the bus stop. After that, Charlotte blocked me from literally everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, my phone number, everything. When I tried to contact her by email because, yes, I got to that point of desperation, she never responded. I asked Mom to talk to her, to tell her I just wanted to apologize and fix things. But Charlotte told her she didn't want to know anything about me and not to pressure her about it. And Mom, instead of telling Charlotte she was being ridiculous and cruel, basically accepted the situation and told me to give my sister space, that eventually she'd get over it. Spoiler alert, she didn't get over it. 3 whole years went by without talking to her. 3 years in which I moved on with my life, finished my degree at community college with honors, by the way, not that it matters, started working on different things, and eventually discovered that I loved writing. I started writing stories. At first just as a hobby, but then I decided to self-publish some books on Amazon and other platforms. And it turns out that, I don't know how or why, but one of my books started selling pretty well. Like, I didn't become a millionaire or anything, but I was making enough money to live comfortably. More than many of Charlotte's fancy friends with their expensive degrees, probably. During those 3 years, Mom constantly pressured me to try to reconcile with Charlotte. Every birthday, every Christmas, every possible occasion, it was Mom calling me and saying, "Olivia, she's your sister, family is important, you have to try to fix this." And I explained to her over and over that I had tried, that Charlotte was the one who had cut me off completely, that there was nothing more I could do. But Mom never wanted to hear that. She always found a way to make it sound like I wasn't trying hard enough, like somehow it was my responsibility to fix something Charlotte had broken. About 4 months ago, Mom called me and told me that Charlotte was going to have a birthday party, she was turning 26, and that I really, really needed to go. She told me that Charlotte had casually mentioned that she wouldn't mind if I showed up, which, looking back, was probably a lie, and that this was my chance to fix things. I didn't want to go. Honestly, every fiber of my being told me it was a bad idea, but Mom kept insisting and eventually convinced me. She told me to buy something nice for Charlotte, to arrive with a positive attitude, that everything was going to be fine. So I spent a fortune, like around $800, on a designer bag that I knew Charlotte would love because I had seen her stalking it on her Instagram. Yes, she had me blocked, but I had a fake account. Don't judge me. I arrived at the party with that bag wrapped in nice gift paper, with my heart beating a mile a minute, trying to mentally prepare myself for whatever was going to happen. When I walked in, Charlotte saw me, and for a second I saw something in her face. I don't know if it was surprise or disgust or what, but she quickly put on a fake smile and said, "Oh, Olivia, you came. Good to see you." The party was horrible from the start. Charlotte basically ignored me after that initial greeting, and when I gave her the gift, she opened it without much enthusiasm, said, "Thanks," and put it aside like it was whatever. I was standing there feeling like an idiot, trying to make conversation with people who clearly didn't want to talk to me, drinking to calm my nerves. And then Charlotte decided it was a good time to humiliate me again. But this time was worse than the last. We were all in the living room. There were like 20 people there, and someone asked Charlotte about her family. She started talking about Mom, about Dad, and when someone asked if she had siblings, she pointed at me and said, with that evil little smile, "I'll never forget. Yes, that's my younger sister, Olivia. She went to community college, so you know. She didn't do much with her life. But, well, not everyone can be successful, right?" The room went silent. I felt like my face was burning, my hands were shaking, and all I wanted was to disappear or die right there. But then something happened that Charlotte definitely didn't expect. One of her friends, Amanda, I think her name was, looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Wait, are you Olivia the writer? The one who wrote that book about the girl who time travels?" And I, still in shock from what Charlotte had just said, just nodded. Amanda literally screamed, "Oh my God, I love your books. I've read them all. I've recommended your series to everyone. You're amazing." And then other people started saying they had also heard of me or had read my books, and suddenly I was the center of attention, but in a positive way. Charlotte's face changed completely. Suddenly she was all smiles and was super proud of me, saying things like, "Yes, my sister is super talented. I always knew she was going to do incredible things. I'm so proud of her." I was in autopilot mode, smiling and thanking the compliments. But inside I was like, what the fuck is happening? This woman literally just called me a failure 2 minutes ago, and now she's acting like my #1 fan. I couldn't even process the hypocrisy. I left that party as fast as I could, making up some excuse about having to work in the morning or something. I thought that would be the end, that I'd go back to not talking to Charlotte and everything would continue as before. But no, turns out that now that Charlotte knew I was successful, according to her superficial standards, she suddenly wanted to be my best friend again. She started calling me, texting me, saying things like, "I miss spending time with you. We should catch up. A lot has happened." At first I ignored her messages because, after everything that had happened, I wasn't going to just act like nothing had occurred. But she kept insisting. And eventually I sent her a text telling her I needed time, that I didn't feel comfortable reconnecting with her, especially considering that her change in attitude suspiciously coincided with discovering my success. I told her that if she really cared about our relationship, she needed to give me space and respect my feelings. I thought that would be clear enough. Charlotte didn't respect any of that. A week later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She rang the doorbell at like 9 in the morning on a Saturday, and when I opened the door, there she was with coffee and donuts, acting like we were best friends and she was just casually stopping by to visit. I was still in pajamas, no makeup, basically in zombie mode because I had been writing until 3 in the morning, and I wasn't in the mood to deal with this. But she invited herself in, sat on my couch, and started asking a bunch of questions about my writing career. The questions weren't like, when did you start writing or what inspired you or normal things that someone genuinely interested would ask. No. They were super specific questions about how much money I made, how many books I sold per month, if I had contracts with publishers, if I knew important people in the industry. And I answered vaguely because it was making me super uncomfortable, but she kept pushing. At one point, she said something like, we should work together on something. We could do a family business. You write, and I handle the business side. I told her no, that I wasn't interested in mixing family with work, especially considering our history. She laughed like I had told a joke and said, "Oh, Olivia, you have to let go of the past. I already got over it. You should do the same. I already got over it." Like she had been the victim in all this. It took all my willpower not to yell at her to get out of my apartment right then. Instead, I told her I had work to do and that I needed her to leave. She left, but not without first saying she'd call me soon to keep talking about our project together. Our project together. I hadn't even agreed to do anything with her, and she was already acting like it was a done deal. A few days later, I started receiving messages from family members, telling me things like, "How exciting that you and Charlotte are working together," or "Congratulations on the new business with your sister." I had no idea what they were talking about, so I started investigating. And it turns out Charlotte had been telling everyone that we were starting a business together, that we were going to be partners. This whole story she had completely made up. I sent her a very angry text asking her why the fuck she was telling people we had a business when I had never agreed to any of that. She responded super casual, like, "Relax, I'm just generating buzz. It's good for both of us. People are excited." And when I told her to stop, that she didn't have my permission to use my name or my career for whatever she was planning, she got defensive and said I was being selfish, that she was just trying to help us both, that I had always been this difficult. But things got worse. Much worse. People started contacting me asking how they could invest in our business, offering money, asking about specific projects we were supposedly developing, and I'm there like trying to explain to them that there was no business, that my sister was lying, but nobody believed me because Charlotte had already filled their heads with her whole made-up story. It was a nightmare. I felt like I was losing control of my own life and reputation. I finally blocked Charlotte from everywhere. I didn't send her a message explaining why or anything. I just blocked her because I needed peace of mind, and she clearly wasn't going to respect my boundaries any other way. I thought that would be the end, that eventually people would realize there was no business and everything would calm down. But Charlotte being Charlotte, she found a way to make everything even worse. It turns out that, and I found out about this like a month later, Charlotte had actually been collecting money from investors for this phantom business she had invented. There were people who had given her thousands of dollars based on her promises that we were going to launch, I don't know what publishing project or whatever she had told them. And of course, Charlotte spent all that money on her lifestyle, expensive clothes, dinners at fancy restaurants, a trip to Miami, basically anything except the business she had promised. When people started asking for results and asking her for updates, Charlotte told them that I had backed out of the business at the last minute, that I had ruined everything, that it was my fault she couldn't return their money. She literally blamed me for her fraud. Some of these people contacted me directly, angry, demanding explanations, and I had to show them screenshots of my conversations with Charlotte to prove to them that I had never been involved in any of this. Mom, of course, started calling me almost every day begging me to help Charlotte. She said my sister was in a very difficult situation, that she needed money to solve the problem with the investors, that as family we had to support each other. And I told her absolutely not, that Charlotte had created this mess, herself with her lies and manipulation, and that it wasn't my responsibility to fix it. Mom started crying on the phone saying how could I be so cold with my own sister, that Charlotte was devastated, that she could get in serious legal trouble. And that's when I finally exploded at Mom. I told her that for years she had ignored how Charlotte treated me, that she had never defended me, that she had always taken Charlotte's side no matter how cruel she was to me. I told her that Charlotte had publicly humiliated me multiple times, that she had cut me out of her life for 3 years just because I didn't meet her superficial standards of success, and that now she had only approached me again because she wanted to use my name and my success for her own purposes. I told her that if she kept pressuring me to help Charlotte, I was going to block her too, because I couldn't take the drama anymore. Mom was quiet for a moment and then said I had changed, that success had made me arrogant and selfish. And I laughed. Because after everything that had happened, after years of enduring Charlotte's emotional abuse and Mom's complicity, she was calling me selfish for finally setting boundaries. I told her that if that's what she thought, then maybe it was better if we didn't talk for a while. I hung up the phone and cried for 2 hours because, no matter how justified I was, it's hard to cut ties with your family like that. Now it's been 2 months since I blocked Charlotte and basically stopped talking to Mom regularly. Charlotte apparently is still dealing with the investor problem. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that because honestly it's not my problem and I've tried to stay away from all the drama. Mom sends me messages from time to time, always about Charlotte, always trying to make me feel guilty, but I don't respond like I used to anymore. I've learned that I can't be responsible for other people's decisions and consequences, even if they're my family. Last week, one of my cousins contacted me asking what had really happened with Charlotte because they had heard several versions of the story. I told her everything, from beginning to end, and she told me she had suspected Charlotte was lying about several things but hadn't been sure. And she told me that several family members were starting to see Charlotte's pattern of behavior and that I wasn't alone in feeling she was manipulative. It was validating to hear that, but also sad, because it means my family is basically dividing over all this. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Part of me misses having a sister, misses what Charlotte and I were as kids before everything got complicated. But I also know that person doesn't exist anymore, or maybe never really existed, and I just wanted to believe she did. The Charlotte of now only wants me in her life if I can offer her something, if I can improve her image or her financial situation. And that's not love, that's use. I keep writing my books. In fact, I'm working on a new one that ironically is about toxic family relationships. I guess you write about what you know. My career is going well. Better than I ever imagined when I was at that community college that embarrassed Charlotte so much. Sometimes I think about how the things she used to make me feel inferior ended up being irrelevant, and how what I built on my own, without her approval or anyone's, ended up being successful. Do I feel guilty about cutting Charlotte out of my life? Sometimes yes. I'm not going to lie. Society tells you that family is sacred, that you have to forgive and forget, that blood is more important than anything. But I've also learned that your peace of mind is more important than maintaining toxic relationships just because they share your DNA. I've learned that it's okay to protect yourself, even from your own family, especially from your own family if they're the ones hurting you. Will I talk to Charlotte again someday? Honestly, I don't know. If she ever really changes. If someday she offers me a genuine apology and shows with actions, not just words that she understands how she hurt me. Maybe. But I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for that to happen. For now, I'm focused on my life, on my work, on the people who genuinely support me, and that's enough for now, I guess.